Corey, I had this really cool conversation with my old time friend Nidia, and I know you just listened to it.
I
So
did. It was
we
good.
talked about creativity and travel, and I want to know from you, like, do those things connect?
So you told me that this question was coming, so I haven't ruminated over it, but I have some thoughts. I do think they connect. I'm a believer in life, in travel, and seeing other cultures, and being exposed to things outside of your bubble or your framework. Um, and but I think as a creative and
Mm.
as a creative director, there's a bunch of ways that I think travel and that kind of like just what travel represents, the exposure to other things, other cultures. Um, I think it as a creative, a great creative can operate in multiple styles, in multiple media, in like great creative it transcends like narrow containers. You know, the idea of being able to create if you're an illustrator, being able to illustrate in different styles. If you're a branding person, being able to deliver multiple different styles, motifs.
You've taught me how to
um
look for that in portfolios. We have, because of our business model, we have to look through a lot of portfolios. And sometimes I'll like someone and you'll be like, yeah, but look at all of their things. It's all that same style. You like
exactly.
that style more than that artist.
I feel like that's something that most people, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it's something most people might not know, even most marketers might not know about creatives, that a lot of creatives really kind of have a lane stylistically. And I think great creatives can bounce around. There's some creatives that stay in their lane and they're just world class.
Yeah.
And that's what you go to for, like in the
Mm-hmm.
world. But in general, I think breadth of capability in terms of styles and in terms of tone and in terms of like just the way you're bringing what's in your head to life as a creative, I think is heavily influenced by exposure to other cultures, different languages, the visuals that you're taking in when you're traveling, the experience you have, the understanding of. There's so many different ways I can go with this, but the
Do you have
experience
an
also.
example of like maybe a trip you took and you're like, and you saw how that directly influenced your work or your
the
perspective?
the one that I always when I'm a kind of a typography. I'm not really a typography nerd because I don't really talk about it or think about it that much or write about it, but I love
You're a
it and I
fan.
always yeah. That's what I always look at is the typography.
Mm.
Whenever I travel, I remember like, going to Austin, going to abroad, going to New York, but in New York especially, like seeing the the way typography is rendered. It's not real. I mean, I'm there all the time, but that's something I'm always looking at. Is it retro style? Is it modern, but looking retro on purpose? Is it
Mm-hmm.
like how is it illustrated? I think but that's like very narrow, like just like being able to see the way different cultures do design or creative in other areas, architecture, whatever it is. But I just think seeing other cultures and seeing that people do things different ways and also interacting with people, communicating with people, I think, as a creative, you need to, especially as a commercial creative, a graphic designer, you have to be able to deliver something for an audience. So anyway, long story long, um, I think travel and seeing other things and experiencing other people, personas, like the is essential for great creatives, especially creatives that get paid, and especially I think B2B creatives. So
Okay, well, let's go meet Nidia.
Hello, my name's Nidia Verdugo, and I'm a senior program manager at Microsoft, where I do product growth marketing. And I also have TouristyAF, which is my travel blog, where I get to mix my skills of marketing and travel and creativity all in one.
All right. So, Nydia, we go
Hello.
way back. We've never worked
Way
together, right?
back.
Wait, we never worked together.
No, not us, but I worked with your brother. Yes. So with Michael, that's how I feel like that's how we met, was through Michael,
Yeah.
technically. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
But
we
we
met
never got
at,
to meet together.
yeah. But we both worked at the same place, just at different times,
We
like the same
did.
agency. Yeah.
Correct.
So we like, we get that side of our lives.
Yes. Yes. We've had crossovers, just
Yeah,
different times in our lives. Yes.
exactly. Okay, so over the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, I've been like watching
Oh
your
God.
journey from doing some media buying. Did you do media buying? Is that how
I
you say it?
did. Yeah. So media buying at that agency, correct. That's what I was doing. Yeah.
To like so many other things. And now you're at Microsoft, you have your own consultancy, you have your own blog, you have all these projects, you're in Puerto Rico, like living your best life.
Doing a lot of things.
I love it. I love someone who like one of my friends calls it passion packed. Like it's not like you're like busy, it's just
Oh,
passion packed. Like I just like a lot of
I love
passions.
that. You know, I was actually
Yeah.
just reading a book today. I don't know who the author was. It was like literally like on the coffee table because I was getting my hair done. And then it was like a sales book, but it was talking about like if you're not busy, it means you're not in demand. And it was just like a different
Ooh.
way to look at things when you're feeling like, I don't know, like you have so much going on. It's like, well, that you're in demand. Like that's a good problem to have. It's all perspective. So I like what you said.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you're in demand with your like personal project, Touristy AF. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how did that start? Where are you at with it now?
Okay, so that was literally something that I wanted to do since okay, I studied abroad in Barcelona when I was at Fresno State, and it was just like I want to be able to do this more than just once, right? And I think at that time I didn't have exposure about like what it could be like living abroad or anything like that, but I think that little seed kind of started when I did that program because I was like, "Oh, there's a whole new world out there." And I remember specifically being like I wanna I wanna, like, document this in a way, but, at that time, it was just like, I'm enjoying the moment, whatever, but I did promise myself since then, I was like, "Okay, go somewhere internationally at least once a year," and so that was kinda like I remember back then making myself that promise, and so, like, the following year, I went to Costa Rica, and then after I went to Thailand, and so, like, those, like, 1 international trips at some point became more frequent, but throughout my travels, I remember always, like, even when we went to Thailand, I did this whole, like, presentation of, like, research, of things to do, the weather, like, I just, like, was super
Cool.
into it, so I feel like that was always super interesting me, like, the preparing for it, but then also during all the, like, stories, all the people you meet, all the places you go, and it's like if someone's going, like, "Oh, you should go here," So, like, all those things that are in conversation, I was just like, "I need to do, like, a travel blog or something," but, procrastination, life, priorities, whatever, I never
How
got
old were
to
you
do
at the
it.
time?
I was 20 when I went to study abroad. And so
Okay.
at 21, I think I was like, "Okay, I wanna do this." It wasn't until
That's
COVID.
cool because that's like young.
Yeah, I think I was just like which is okay, even going way back, I remember doing, like, what is it, dog days? Where you do the I don't know, dog days at Fresno State where they tell you, like, what the programs are, all that stuff. I
Oh,
remember
yeah. Okay.
specific yes, yes. So, like, orientation, essentially. I
Mm-hmm.
remember going with my dad and, I already knew, like, I wanted to do business. And real quick, when I was in high school, I, like, researched my interests, and it was, like, marketing, and I was like, "Okay, marketing it is." So going into Fresno State, I already knew what I wanted to study and everything, so we were orientation, and then I remember them talking about, like, "Your 3rd year, you can go to Australia or study abroad," and I remember turning to my dad, I was like, "That's so cool, like, I wanna do that," and so once it came to, like, Spain, I was saving up. I was, like, waiting until
Wow.
I had all my credits to be able to do that, so I feel like since a young age, I've always been like, "I wanna travel, I wanna see what's out there," and it's just the more information and more I travel and the more input I get in this world, in this mind, I was like, "Okay, there's more," So it's like every time it's just more and more. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. You
Okay,
asked.
hold on. I need to sidetrack you one more time
Okay,
because,
ask for it.
like, okay, in high school, you like took a test and it said to do marketing, and now you're doing marketing. Like, what?
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, where do I start? Without making it too long. So, my
No,
first
like
job.
just like I don't want to hear the history. Like, just
Yeah.
because like we're gonna go wait, like
I
we only have
know.
so long.
And then it's when I was born, and then okay.
But like, did you expect that you would actually do it? I guess.
I feel like yes. Um, it was just like all my interests all in one. I've always wanted to do before I even knew what the word entrepreneurship was. I feel that I my first job was working at this like candy store, but she had like a lady owned it, and I just remember being like, that's so cool. Like she has her own business, and I don't know, I just thought that was awesome, and then also growing up seeing my dad, even though he had, his, like, 9 to 5, he's always, like, had his business on the side too, and I think that's
Mm.
something that he's always told me, like, you should try to make money for yourself too, like, yeah, a 9 to 5 because the benefits and everything, but what can you do outside of that? So I think all those factors contributed to me being like, okay, like I know I want to do something in business, but I've always enjoyed like creative things, like since I was a young age
Mm.
too. And I'm not gonna sit here and fake like, I paint and like, I do that type of art. Like that's just not me. Like I can enjoy it, but I'm not someone that necessarily does it like professionally or anything like that. But it was like, okay, how can I still be creative? And then I remember taking a video production class in high school, and I was like, this is cool. And then I learned what like multimedia was, and it was just everything that kind of came together, and I was like marketing. So when I was in at
Mm.
Fresno State, even though I did business marketing, I realized like this is very like analytical, but very business, which is fine. But I was like, I feel like I'm missing the creative part. So I ended up taking like a certificate in MCJ, and that's where I learned about media buying too. And
Oh,
anyway, so
okay.
it's kind of like I've always tried to merge, like, if I felt I wasn't finding, because sometimes, like, marketing and business can just become that, right? Like, very
Yeah.
numbers oriented, and it's part of the business, and I love it, but it's also, like, how can I fuel my creativity? And I think that's the crossover too with well, now we can talk about, jobs or, like, careers, but
Yeah.
throughout my career, it's like I've always been able to bring this, like, data-driven approach to creative projects too, because I think sometimes if you isolate one or the other and they're not talking to each other, then it's just you're kind of missing the point. But with a lot of, for example, like creative content, right? With campaigns, it's like there's the psychology of it. It's part science, but part data, but then also like the part of just anyways, you gotta, like, really understand from, like, the consumer side what they're likely to do, but you gotta have it all. So anyways,
There's
that's
so
kind of
many
where
different facets of marketing. And like here you're like, I'm not a
Yes.
real creative, but like you're literally on a podcast called B2B Creatively. Like
Right,
we were
right.
talking about creativity and like that's all we do
Yes.
is work with creatives and you're one of them. And
Mhm.
just really quick, like when I took that test in high school, um I got cruise director.
Stop it.
And I got cruise director. I got three cruise director, psychologist, and pastor.
What?
Like, yeah. And now here I am in marketing. I don't know. I
Pastor
don't
for
know how it
that is,
happened.
like
But, maybe like my retirement job will be like, guess what? There's
you
burgers on the Lido deck. I'm like, I don't know.
you never know. I feel like we're dynamic human beings, so we have the right to change, and you might wanna
Yeah.
tap into that one day.
Passion packed. Okay, so let's get back to Touristy AF. What the heck is it? What are you doing with it? How are you living your life
Yes.
being Touristy AF?
So originally it started as a travel blog, and then during COVID, right? It's like I decided to just go all in. I'm like, I do marketing for every other businesses, especially at the agency. You're working with so many clients. I'm like, why don't I take the same skill set that I'm so passionately for others and do it for myself? And I think also COVID, it was like, oh, I miss traveling and all of that. So I tapped in and just looked at the archive of a lot of this stuff that I had. And I was like, I want to launch a travel blog. Like, let me do it now. So It started as a travel blog where I was literally doing blogs, a lot of it more just like storytelling, a couple of travel guides, and I started with doing content on social media. So like TikTok kind of started at that time, and I was like, oh sure, like let me try at it. I am not someone that really, does like the dances and stuff like that. So I was like, I just want to put
Mm-hmm.
out like stuff that I've seen and places people can go if they're there one day, you know? So it kind of started as that, as like mini travel guides or even like mini travel blogs or even storytelling, like in short form. And it just kind of turned into more in a shorter time. And so that was exciting to see that happen. And then I realized I was like, I'm not having so much fun writing. So like I want to focus more on the content side. So I started doing just more of the content. And I think that fueled also my creativity where I've always enjoyed just creating like videos. It's super even like when
Mm.
I was when I would like listen to music, I'm like, this is what the music video would look like, like things
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh.
And so
Maybe that's your next career.
I know.
Music video
Video
director.
producer. Yeah. So it was just like all these things. And I told myself in the very beginning when I was doing TouristyAF, I was like, I want it to be fun. Like, I don't want it to become something that I put so much pressure on it that, I think at that time and even now you hear the word influencer, content creator. And I think I was just like, I'm just creating. And I think sometimes when you do things like from the heart and organically, people gravitate to it. So I
Mm-hmm.
never tied anything more to it. And I think because of that, like I was just like, what? I'm just sharing what I want to share. People like resonate with it, like more so on TikTok, like videos, like, getting more engagement and traction. And I enjoyed it until I didn't. And I think sometimes we have to like honor ourselves in that process because it
Yeah.
did start becoming something that I was like, okay, I need to, put out certain
Now I
content or
have
maybe
to do this. Like it's been
yes,
5 days. I needed.
yes,
I hate
yes.
that pressure.
Yes. So I was just like, you know what? I told myself do it as long as you have fun. And so what I did was like I backed away more from like the social media side of it, but in the back end because of my like some social media presence, I still was able to garner some great opportunities. So I pulled away from the blogs, did more content when content was becoming just not fun anymore. I was like, okay, what can we do with it? And so because I already had all this, I started reaching out to like travel brands, everything from like hotels to tourism boards and stuff like that, and being like, hey, this is what I can do and I can do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so out of that has come a couple of opportunities that I never thought would happen. And it all comes down to I met this amazing person. Shout out to Dominique Jackson. She's a travel writer. I met her during um my first year of like nomadic life in Mexico City. And she was like, yeah, like people will send me on assignment and I get to do press trips. And I was like, what are press trips? So like again, by like talking and meeting people, you like share ideas, you learn about the possibilities that exist in that world. So that's when I started to learn that I could make some sort of like income out of this, right? And what that looks like. I'm not someone that likes to do like courses or that kind of thing necessarily. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like, okay, I already create content. There's a proof there. How can I reach out to hotels or these travel brands and be like, I can create this content for you too. So anyways, that's what TouristyAF right now is. So what I do whenever I do like post and publish, which is not as frequent anymore, it's just what I feel like at the time. But in the back end, I'm working with some brands. I've done some press trips. So an example was like the Narife. I got to go there with my friend who's the journalist, and I got to take content for
Cool.
her. And anyways, yeah, so like in the back end, I'm just doing more like brand deals, content creation for like travel brands, and that's kind of where we're at. Yay.
That's so fun. I love travel vlogs. Like when I'm planning a trip, I'll like I find like I usually look at like female vloggers who like the same things that I do. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this girl's a foodie. Like I'm gonna just
Yes,
I
yes,
will
yes.
sit and watch 45 minutes of like there's this one gal, like I'll watch like all of everywhere she goes, and then I'm just like on my phone putting like making pins in my Google Maps. Like,
Yes.
okay, when
Yes.
I go to Copenhagen, I'm totally going to that coffee
Yep.
shop, like all
Mhm.
that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I'll send it. In this case, this is a true story. I really do want to go to Copenhagen next. That's like my next thing. And I'm
That's
trying to talk my
exciting.
friend into meeting me there. And so I sent her the vlog and I was like, watch this 45-minute video of these. And it like
Yes.
wasn't even compelling content. It was just like what I needed to hear to know like what I was getting
Yes.
into.
Yes. Giving you
Um,
like a little glimpse of, oh, this could be something that I do in the future, which you will. So let me know how it
yeah.
goes.
Yeah, I will. I will. Okay, so we're here to talk about B2B trends and B2B
Mm-hmm.
marketing and storytelling and all that. But I really think that there's a way, like consumers are consumers no matter what. So whether you're
Uh-huh.
consuming business content because you need to
Uh-huh.
and it's part of your job, or you're watching a travel vlog, it's the same. Like it's still me watching,
Mm-hmm.
like, the Nidia in Puerto Rico going to Bad Bunny and Nidia like creating this product story for Microsoft. So
Right, right.
I guess let's just start there. Like, how do you see those worlds like connecting?
I feel like you said it perfectly. What is it like put yourself in another person's shoes? And I think whenever it comes to marketing or really any project, and I have one great manager, well, he used to be my manager at Microsoft that always told me like at the end of the day, what people will remember is how you make them feel. So anytime there was like any pressure with certain projects or the approach, whatever it was, it's like, yeah, data, numbers, all those things like, matter at that time. But what matters is like how you make people feel in the whole process. So I think just the human touch and element in anything that we do, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, like you at one point are the consumer. You at one point are like, the other person or the person trying to sell, the person trying to buy, like whatever it is, like we've all have been or at some point will be on receiving ends. And I think that's the important thing to remember. So even with like marketing campaigns, it's like it might sound cliche, but like put yourself in the business or, whoever your target audience is, like their shoes and be like, how would I like to be approached, and it's something that's so simple, but it's just I think it works in life, like, literally in whatever anything that you do, so simple answer to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that regard, like, what are things that you're trying on your own? Like, what are some, like, I know I saw the other day you posted like some video journals and you're like, this is my favorite thing right now. Like,
Oh my
what is it
god,
still your favorite thing? What does that look like for
yes.
people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, so okay, so the video journals are how do I explain this? Like for me, it's just raw organic moments. And so I'll kind of go back to whenever I like travel and stuff, I'm just recording. I'm like that friend that's always like recording. And my favorite thing to do is actually record my friends. That's or random people or just like things. And capturing like those still moments that sometimes people might not know they're being captured because it's like it's not performative, right? It's just natural and organic. And so I think why I've enjoyed that more. So I did like my first travel blog and like that was fun and everything on YouTube. And then as I'm looking through all the content that I have and I'm like, oh, what is like for TikTok that's more like those travel guides, those kind of things that perform quote unquote better. But then it's like, okay, like I kind of like I have so much content that like my friends are saying funny stuff or it's just like random stuff that I'm like, I find this funny. I don't care if no one else does, but like this is like I'm gonna look back. And another thing that I recently heard is like my Instagram is like my diary. And so I think it all ties back where I want to be able to like look back at my social media presence and be like, wow, like I have lived or like, just like you have a physical journal, like you can have that too in the
Mm-hmm.
form of pictures or videos. And so recently when I went to New York, my plan was to do like, I'll just capture content and I'll create a vlog. And then when I was like getting ready to be in that creative process, I was like, actually just want to upload it as like a carousel, like these specific moments that for whatever reason spoke to me. And like that's
Mm-hmm.
all it was. And I kind of did that recently too on my travel page with like moments in Puerto Rico because I've been spending some time in Puerto Rico now and I haven't really shared a lot of that content. And I thought about doing like travel guides and stuff like that, but I was like, Actually, no. Like right now, what I want to upload is just like these small, short clips, moments that just feel very intimate to me. And so maybe someone will be like, "Oh, that's cool. Like I like it," but at the end of the day, I like it, and that's what
Yeah.
matters.
Okay, so one day I just, I'm like on and off social
Mhm.
media and Instagram. Like I just go through
Yes,
my own
yes, yes.
phases. And
Absolutely.
one day, a couple weeks ago, I was like, I'm just gonna document my whole day, like all these moments. I have kind of a packed
Uh-huh.
day, and
Uh-huh.
I'm like excited about today. And then there was this, like in the middle of it all, I had to do laundry.
Mhm.
And so I made this slow-mo video of me like putting in my little laundry pods, and I was
Love
so
that.
embarrassed, but I uploaded it and I was like, "Oh my gosh," like, and I put even like, "Please excuse my laundry art." And all of my artist friends were like, "We love this." Like they could care
Oh,
less
I
about
love
the rest
that.
of my day. They're like, "Show us more laundry." Like
Like,
these
this is the
and
best
I think
part.
it comes back to like those moments that are like relatable and
Mhm.
maybe every day, but
Mhm.
even if you did your laundry and I did mine, it's going to look different. And it's kind of
Yes.
interesting to see like what our lives look like doing the
And I think it's
everyday.
also, like, the common thing, right? Because you said we might have something in common, but we do it differently, and I feel also with, I don't know, social media, it's a double-edged sword because I know so many people that I'm like, "Just put it out there, who cares?" And I know it's easier said than done, like, I have even felt that many times where I'm like, "Oh, should I put this out? Should I not?" I think, like, we
Mhm.
all have that, inner voice at times, but like you said, you shared that moment, you're like, I'm just gonna do it," and it's like, just do it, and whoever's gonna, like, resonate with it is gonna resonate, even if that one person is yourself, like, that's
Right.
literally the whole point.
Mhm.
And
Okay, so
everything
then
else is an add-on.
how does that translate to this B2B space that both of us are in? Like there are, they say like how you do anything is how you do everything. So,
Um,
like thinking about I'm just like processing myself this
mhm,
the same question. Like I just did a presentation
mhm,
earlier in the week where I wanted to tell a story and to explain this concept. And I actually did use like moments. I did a bunch of interviews. It was a
I
research
love
project, and I
that.
just
Mhm.
I had an editor put the moments together for me, but I chose them, and they were
Yeah.
just like these really unique times within these interviews that I did, and it wasn't, it was all for internal communication. It wasn't going to go out to
Uh-huh.
anyone. It wasn't for show. It didn't need to be, but it was like
Yeah.
really important to capture those so that the people I was presenting to understood why I was proposing what I was proposing. Like
Mhm.
there was a
Mhm.
business case around showing them those moments. And
Mhm.
so, um, yeah, I'm just like I'm like asking myself the same question that I'm asking you, like, how do
Yeah.
I use these same principles in my work?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's a great question, and it's, I think, a good question to ask yourself often because, like you said, how you do what is it? How you do
How
everything.
you do anything is how you do
I do anything.
everything.
Yes, and it's like sometimes we think, for us, for example, right, where we're in the space where we wear, like, multiple hats. I think it's easy to silo things, and it's like, no, everything's really interconnected, and it's important to remind yourself, like, I'll say this for myself, like, with 9 to 5, I think it's so easy sometimes with certain, like, certain goals, right? Or certain things that, like, you personally don't really have control over, like, "Oh, these are the metrics," or, "These are, like, our goals," and sometimes they change, and I think it's so easy to sometimes feel that disconnect because you don't feel as close to it, but it's like, no,
Yeah,
you should really show up to it with the same passion that you would your own sort of thing, right? And if you're not, then maybe that's a sign to, things are misaligned and it's time to seek something else. And I've definitely had those moments where I was just like, why can't I like be super into this? And it's because of that. It's like something's not right. So I think it's also
that's
important
a
to
whole
just,
other podcast.
yeah, girl,
We could really
yes.
go in.
We're
We
gonna
could
have to
really
be
go
part
there.
2, part 3, part 4, part 5. But, so yeah, I think that's super, super important, and to your point where you were talking about how you had a presentation and you use these moments, we're all like humans at the end of the day. I know it sounds so like, okay, yeah, but sometimes people don't want to be talked at. They want to have like an open conversation. I think when it comes to like my career, specifically with like in corporate,
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy, especially in corporate world, corporate America, to just be like, "Oh, it has to be like, da 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 da," and I fall into that, and it's like, no, at the end of the day, like, it is you're talking to another human being who, once they shut the computer down, like, they have their families, they have their life, whatever it is, and I'll give an example. Recently, there was a presentation that we did for, like, a CVP of an organization within Microsoft, and
Mm-hmm.
it literally was just, like, sprung onto us the week of, and, like, everyone's, like, frantic, like, it's a Wednesday, he put in the meeting, like, he just literally sent it to all of us, like, "We're meeting Friday," and so people are like, and I'm like, "Well, should I also be like, 'Ah,' like, what's going on here," right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if the higher ups around me are, like, a little panicky, it's like, "Should I too?" And so we're, working on this presentation, and I thought it was so funny because, like, once a presentation comes, and it tends to happen like this, I found a lot of times when you put so much, like, emphasis on things, where he's like, "This is what I wanna talk about." And it wasn't nothing to do with anything
Oh
that
my
we put
gosh.
together.
I have been in that moment so many times where everyone is
Yes.
like scrambling to get something, and then
Right,
like the
right.
person that requested it was like, "Well, actually, I just changed my mind in this moment right now because I
Yeah,
think I want
yeah.
to go here. Like I've had a couple days to think about it." And everyone is like, "What? Like
Oh,
we have been bending over backwards for you?"
it happens, right? Like, I think flexibility is one thing we all have to be okay with in any career that we're in, but what I found so ironic about that we prepared all this, and it's good to be prepared, right? Like, we had it should the conversation gear a certain way, we had that information, but the at end of the day, he wanted to talk about something else, like, "Okay, cool." He, like, kinda stopped us in halfway through presentation, and he was just like, "Oh, like, so this is my question," and then that sprung, like, a organic conversation, which I thought was, like, cool, and then once I had never talked to him in person, like, it was always via email, and so there was always, like, sometimes this pressure of, like, "Oh, you have to respond to him a certain way because blah, blah." I'm like, "Okay, sure," and so, like, I never understood it, maybe because 'cause I'm not so close to it, but once we were in that meeting, a question or something came up, like a topic, and I just, like, unmuted myself, I was on camera and everything, I was like, "Oh," like, I just, like, jumped in and talked, and it felt like a natural conversation. I'm just like, "He's just a normal guy. Yeah, he's very high up, and I can understand the pressure, absolutely, but once I felt like he almost made it comfortable, like, chill, like, I'm here, these are my questions, let's have a conversation," and so I think
There was like
remembering
less
that.
pressure because you remembered that he's human and you're just
Yes.
talking.
Literally, yes, yes, and I think that's something that to always remember in going into things, titles at the end of the day are just titles, they come with certain perks, but yeah, like, whoever you talk to, it's a receiving human, and I think people just wanna feel seen and heard wherever they are, and so sometimes, I don't know, so that was just, like, a valuable lesson to me, and I think just approaching anything, any project, anything that you do, I can understand certain pressures that come with, like, there's a title and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's just, like, just share what's in your heart and your mind, and I think as long as you're being respectful, there's oh my gosh, what's the worst that's gonna happen, you know?
Right. And okay,
Yeah.
so, it's easy to hear you say this because you are good at what you do. And like, hear me
I
out.
mean, okay, I'm listening.
Hear me out here. Because like the other thing that I know about you from is like
Mhm,
you are very metrics, analytics, and data driven. And a
mhm,
lot of, I mean, that's what makes a good marketer, right? You balance the
mhm,
creativity and the analytics. And so like when it comes to needing to back up whatever you're suggesting, you have it. How do
mm.
you what would you say to those creatives that aren't as strong in that area? Like, how can they make sure that they're finding that balance? Like, how have you found the balance?
I'll start off by saying, I failed basic math first year of college 3 times. So
Nice.
so and I was like,
For
"Oh my
all the
gosh."
college students listening,
For all the
like, who
college
cares?
So it's literally not like a measurement. I mean, that's a whole other conversation of like, the testing system and all that stuff. We can have a whole convo. But for a very long time, I felt like I'm not a numbers person. Like, oh my God, I can't even pass this like basic stats class. Like, what am I supposed to do? And then anyways, I it wasn't until I think it really depends of how you learn things. So you have to figure out like what works for you and what like I think that's super important because once I took the media buying class and because it was so integrated with um the way it was integrated with like marketing and advertising, it didn't feel like I was learning math. And so and you would have told me I was going to be in media buying where you have to worry about like all these numbers. I would have been like, no,
Mhm.
I'm out. I'm switching majors. And so the fact that it all kind of came down to that is like, what? And like now, like, oh my gosh, the work that I do, it's very, marketing creative too, but it's pretty say like 70% of the time it's numbers, like very data driven oriented and like this week I was like beating my head with like our data guy like we're trying to figure out like an answer, right? An answer to a question looking at all this data like LTVs, ROIs, blah blah blah, like language that would have scared me a long time ago. And so I think you just got to dive in and figure out what works. I think paths align. I think for creative people that are like super scared of numbers and data, it's like, well, how are you getting your information? I think as a creative, it's important to understand trends more than anything. So if it's reading a blog or I don't know, listening to a podcast or in what way can you receive information better? And there's so many like especially like YouTube, there's so many resources to get the same information, maybe like in a more visual way that breaks it down that's more digestible. So just just figure out like what works for you and who does a better job at explaining it because I think anything can be learned as long as you know how you best learn and yeah, but I think, like, data is super important, especially making informed decisions for, like, creatives. I work with a
Mhm.
lot of graphic designers too, and I think I don't know if you've had this, but, sometimes when I work with graphic designers, it's like they're not always data driven, and so it's like, "Yes, it's beautiful, but it's not gonna get me the results I need, so how about we do
Yeah.
this?" I think a lot of it is also just knowing what people's strengths are, what are your strengths, like how you can come together and collaborate. And I think that's just part of any job or project that you're in is understanding strengths and complementing. And I think the more you get out of your comfort zone and also work with like different stuff, you get exposed and learn more as well. So definitely out of your comfort zone to get, a little bit more information for creatives that want like to learn more about data.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like about you it is still storytelling. So you're like tell So like when I think about marketing and data and analytics, it's like a communication tool for me. Like
Mhm.
how am I going to tell the story? And I think that when you are working with like those like pure creatives, designers, video editors, etc., like you just if you can just explain like okay, here's what we need because like here's the big picture and
Mhm.
here's why we need things done in a certain way, like they're going to get it too because that like we all can
Yep.
connect to a story. And so if
Mhm.
it's up to like anyone to say
Yep.
because I mean, sometimes I have like a designer saying, okay, well, you told me it needed to be fresh. And like, that's why I'm using this light green because it's like fresh.
Right.
And,
Very, like,
so I'm like,
logical.
oh, okay. Like, I get it. Oh, like, let's like think about this together.
Mhm.
Okay. So we've talked about video journaling, side hustles, Instagram, finding business moments. What social trends would you like to see B2B marketers trying out or using?
Mm. Mm. That's a tough one. It's a good one, though. B2B. I feel like it would be nice to see more emotional storytelling. I think a lot of times we've taken UGC, for example, we've taken even content creation. Like a lot of it is following trends,
Mm-hmm.
um, which, trends exist for a reason or whatever. But I think a lot of times people lose their like for the sake of chasing trends and trying to stay relevant, they lose like the emotional storytelling of it, of like who we are, what we stand for. So I think that would be nice to see a little bit more of that, and not it be performative, because I think there's a big I think that also kind of goes into chasing trends with like brands being performative and like, oh, let's do this, but I feel like you can just tell. You can just tell when it's
I was just
not
gonna ask, like, how do
authentic.
you know?
Yeah, well, even like, okay, with a lot of people using, like, because I do UGC, so, like, I can spot on when it's a UGC, like, content creator that they hired, maybe they gave them a script or and stuff like
Oh,
that, and
okay.
it's
Yep.
yeah, so I feel like that's super easy, so a lot of times I feel like we're being sold to, and it's just like, don't sell
Mm.
things to me, like, tell me, like, I guess why I need this, but not in a way like shoving it down my throat. So, what I mean by like emotional storytelling, it's like highlighting the people behind your brand too. And I think that's super important. Like, and I'm talking everyone that makes up your company, everyone from who closes the doors at night, cleans it, to like whoever it is. Because at the end of the day, like everyone's coming together and working for, a company or whatever. But just like emotional storytelling, I think empathy, we lack that a lot. Personally, I feel like. And so just being able to say, like, being transparent too, right? Not everything has to be roses and everything, like being honest, and I think that's just like super important. So I just want to feel connected when I see a brand and be like,
Mm.
"Oh, okay, you're cool. Like, I believe in this because you believe in this. Like, that's how much I believe in it versus like, here, you should buy this because the graphics are pretty, but like maybe the storytelling's lacking, or sometimes you do have the storytelling, but then the visuals that you lose me. So there has to be a balance. But
Yeah, it's a yeah, it's a delicate balance, but I think you're right. Like you can tell when something is trying too hard. You're like, you don't have to try that hard. Just like
you
be
don't.
real.
Just be real, like, whoever's gonna resonate. And then I also think it's like a, like, micro moments. So I think it's like, if you do things from the heart, you might not see the fruits of the labor right away, but then it's just like the compounding effect, right? It's just like at some point, boom. And I think I always love that when I see, either if it's companies or even like creators, like creatives and whatever, whether it's like music artists, like there's like this band from Mexico City that I found, and it's like just within the last year they've like blown up, and I feel like it's like they've stayed so true to themselves, just creating art, and then people resonate with how authentic it's been, and then boom, and then so I think just any art that you create, just do it from the heart. And if it I think when you have an attachment or expectation, that's where we get disappointment, right? And I think it's
Yeah.
normal, like, we do it a lot. I do it a lot, and it's like, "Well, damn, that didn't come out how I thought." It's like because I had this expectation, it's like I realize sometimes when I try the least, it's like when things come into fruition. So, um, I think just always having that internal dialogue with yourself, and as much as we're talking about, like, business and projects and stuff like that, it's on the personal side too, and it's just I think it's a constant reminder, and it's not like, "Oh, you've reached the milestone and you're free and you're always gonna think
Yeah.
this way." Like, you always have to check in with yourself and remind yourself of those things, but I don't know.
It's a good question to ask yourself when you're like deep into that. When you're in those like business stories, to say like, okay,
Mhm.
this is telling the story, it's meeting the objectives, but at the end of the day, like, are people able to connect to it? And I think that's
Mhm.
like a nice check
Mhm.
to ask
Yes.
yourself and ask your team,
Yep.
whoever's working on whatever, whether it's a video, a presentation, a white
Any
paper, even like,
Yeah.
okay, is this Is this going to connect with, is this going to connect
Yeah,
the dots and also to the person consuming it?
absolutely. You gave a great example earlier of where it's like with data, right? It's still storytelling as much as it's numbers. Like, how can I tell this story? And understanding like even this as recent as yesterday, I was working on a report and my manager, I was like, here's before I send it, what do you think? And he's like, okay, these are some areas like where you need to be better at storytelling and not assume people will know. So like, even myself,
Mm,
like as much as I've been doing this, it's like, oh, good point. Like because I know it, I shouldn't assume that other people know it. So it's always kind of understanding your audience and how can you story tell? And just real quick, like whenever I have to do presentations at work, I love doing
hmm
like little Q&As or like starting with like a funny meme or a video or whatever. And I feel like that breaks the ice. And so instead of being like, oh,
Yeah.
these are the numbers, I'm like, oh, like, here's a question or, start it off like that. And I think I've always found that that creates one, they're going to actually be more tuned in because they were probably, especially if I'm like in the middle of the
All those
presentation
people
or
who
the
are like
end.
in back-to-back meetings
Yeah,
and they're like, and then
yes.
like you break it up with the meme and
Yeah, they're like, "Wait, what?"
you sold
Um,
them.
yes, I think it's just important to always be like, especially in the world that we live in, we're always just, like I said, back-to-back meetings and stuff like that, so how can you break it up a little bit? Even if it's just for yourself, I'm like, "Well, I need to have fun doing this presentation."
You're like, I really don't want to lose my soul today, so can we
Yes.
have a little laugh?
Yes, exactly. But anyways, that's that.
Okay, well, this has been so awesome. I love that we've like seen your journey from, in your early 20s, like thinking, oh my gosh, I can go to another country and work. And then you've worked and you've had really cool jobs. You're at Microsoft now, you're living in Puerto Rico, you're doing like so many creative things on the side. What is something that you would like other people to know about, maybe to like experience for themselves, like young people in particular?
Oh my god, my young people. I feel like you should always ask yourself, am I doing the things that like my younger self would want? And I know it's like the whole like, oh, inner child or whatever, but I think it goes back to I was actually having a conversation with someone recently and I was just like, oh my God, I'm doing way more. Like if I had someone like me growing up, I would have been like, oh my God, that person is amazing. And it's, I say this humbly, like Kanye would. But no, but like seriously, it's like be the person you
I
wish you
mean,
had
I
when
want to
you were
be you when I grow
younger.
up, so I get
Stop
it.
it. But it's just like I guess it comes down to like, are you proud of like the things that you're doing? And if there's areas where you feel like not, like, you know, what can I do better to improve? Or like why am I not proud? Like, so I think just having those conversations with yourself and I think also for like young people, like I have my cousins and stuff who are like figuring out like what do I do and all that stuff is like girl, I'm still figuring it out. Like, she has this we had a conversation once and I was like, I feel like you have the perception that I'm like, I have it all together. And I'm like, I don't. I really don't. And it's like you're seeing maybe like the results of what I put in very hard work to your point since my 20s. And so like maybe now I'm at a point where I wouldn't even say I'm relaxing more, but I can understand how it can be perceived a certain way. But
You've like done the testing and the experimenting and all of that to figure out what really works for you.
yes, yes, and I'm still doing it because now I'm at a point where, like, okay, I have enough data to understand, like, what are certain things that I want my life to be like, but then I'm also, like, a very curious person, so I think I'm always just gonna be learning and pivoting and adapting, and, one of my favorite poets, Young Pueblo, I don't know which book it is, but he talks about, like, being dynamic human beings, and I love that because I think for a long time, I had a certain perception of who I was supposed to be, and then when I let go of that idea, I was like, "I can reinvent myself anytime that I want," and I think that is, like, the one advice I'd give to, like, young people is, like, just try things, and I think when you're in your 20s, you have this, like, more delusional version of yourself where it's like you don't think of things as like calculated risk as much. So it's like whatever you want to do and try, just do it and try it. Like there's no better time to
Yeah.
do it. Even in your 30s, like I'm in my 30s now. I'm like I feel like I'm still in my 20s. So I still will like have that mindset, but you kind of like get in your head a little bit more sometimes, but just just try things. It's okay to change and just what's going to work for you because there's things that are going to work for different people and you might have enough data to know like, oh, if I go down that route that can be the result, but everyone literally has their own story and their own inputs and outputs that make them them. And so just oh, and then community, I think community is so huge. I think as a
And I want to get
society.
into the Cannes Lion stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, let's
Okay,
get
yeah, yeah,
practical
yeah.
too.
Yes, yes. But yeah, just building community, like, connecting, networking. I think that is super, super huge. So don't overthink that.
Speaking of people under 30, like, tell me about this Cannes Lions experience that you had because it was just seems like this global, cool experience. Like, what is it? What is about?
Hmm.
What's it about? What is it? What is
Yes.
it about?
So anyone that's under 30, I highly suggest that you literally look up right now Cannes Lions Brands Academy, Creative Academy, and look up the programs. Basically, it's this program that happens in Cannes, France every year. And just think of anything that's advertising marketing. Like I wouldn't even call it a conference. It was like a conference with, it was amazing. Like I have no way to describe it besides like, where am I? This is so cool. But I didn't know
Darn,
about
I
it
want to do it. I
until
wish I was under 30.
they do have programs for like women and other stuff, but a lot of people, like, if you're still in college or you're just starting your career, I was 29 when I did it. So I was like, I barely made it, but it was like under 30, you can apply and essentially you get to do a program with like 30 other people from that have been selected globally, like these marketing quote unquote superstars from different parts of their career. You just come together to like learn from each other. You get to connect with CEOs of like all these crazy, corporate brands that you hear of. And it's like almost like a one-on-one mentorship with those people where you have these like workshops and you have an opportunity to just like communicate with them. So I just think I wish I had known about it when I was, like, starting my career or earlier than I did so I can go every single year if I could.
Yeah.
But for anyone that is interested in really, like, the creative space, like, the marketing space, the advertising space, I think it's definitely worth checking out and seeing if you can get accepted to the program, and don't underestimate yourself, like, anyone and everyone can apply, and, if you get selected, it's just a once in a life opportunity to really have one-on-one conversations with people that you never thought you'd be sitting in the room with, like VP,
Wow.
CEOs, like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That sounds really amazing. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. I'm like already going to send people this episode just so they can listen to
Yes.
everything that you have to say, but like, but also this.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
so much, Nidia. This is so fun to catch
Thank
up, and
you.
I love that I think you're our the furthest away interview so far, Puerto Rico, which is
I love
really cool.
that. Yes, yes. You're gonna have to start a map one day if you
Oh my
interview more
gosh,
people.
yes.
That would be
Yeah, I'll
cool.
do like a travel blog of like who I interview.
Yes.
I
I
don't know
know
if we can
people
get
I can
that up.
connect you.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Who says B2B has to be boring?
Not us.
Like this video if you agree, and definitely subscribe if you want to get more out of your B2B marketing.
Maybe start with one of these, and if that's not enough, head over to LinkedIn or storiesbureau.com and say hello.
We can't wait to meet you.